Welcome, everyone. My name is Dot Porter, and I'm the curator for digital research services at the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. This is Coffee with a Codex. So every Wednesday at noon, I go to the shelf and I pull down one or two manuscripts, and then we talk about them for about half an hour. It's very informal. If you have questions as we go along, don't hesitate to type them in the chat. Also, I want everyone to know that I am a generalist when it comes to manuscript studies. So a lot of times people who are on here know more than I do. So if there's something that you see that you think is interesting that other people need to know about, please don't hesitate to put it in the chat, and I will I'll say it so it will show up on the recording. So today we're actually going to look at two manuscripts. So I only advertised one, but as I was doing the research for this late last week, I came across a second manuscript that goes along with this one in a couple of different ways. And the reason that I found it is because they are next to each other on the shelf. So this one is MS Codex 1630, and the other one is MS Codex 1629. So MS Codex 1630 is a 15th century copy of a very popular treatise on rhetoric. So it was written in the 1st century, and it was by about the 4th century, it was being attributed to Cicero, although it was not written by Cicero, but throughout the Middle Ages and into the Renaissance, people thought that it was written by Cicero, and it was copied many times. I think I saw the word 600. So there are at least 600 copies that survive, including our little manuscript here. This was copied in northern Italy in the sort of mid to late 15th century, and that has been figured because of the script. It's a proto-humanist script, so an early humanist script, the humanist script being the script that was sort of developed later to differentiate itself from the medieval script. So this is the idea of I don't think they would have said this, but like we are coming into the Renaissance and we are looking back at the classical writers, and we are going to be now copying the classical writers. And instead of using that awful Gothic script that they used in the Middle Ages, we are now going to be using this new humanist script. But this is an early version of that, which actually has some elements of the Gothic mixed in with the newly developing elements of the humanist script. It's a lovely little book. It's very neatly written. The parchment is pretty nice. You can tell the difference pretty easily between the hair and the flesh, which is sort of one of the ways that you can tell how nice manuscript is how clear is the difference between the hair and the flesh side. So this is the flesh side, that is the side that's on the inside of the animal, and then the hair side that's on the outside. And you can tell the difference because the flesh side is a lighter color and quite creamy, and the hair side is going to have things like hair follicles, and it's going to be a little more yellow, generally speaking. There is a question here, Chris in the chat. Is our primary manuscript of any relation to the Rhetorica at Herennium, which is addressed to Gaius? I don't know. I mean, that's the name of the text. So the name of the text as written in the catalog record is this Rhetorica ad Herennium. So kind of assuming it's the same text. I haven't read it, but it's generally in 4 sections. This one is unusual because it's actually written in 6. Instead of in 4 chapters, it's in 6 chapters. So the 4th chapter was further subdivided into 3 sections. Okay, so as I said, it's nicely written. It has a little bit of decoration. Every chapter, so the sections are starting with these little colored initials with this sort of decoration on them. And then within the text, you get paragraph markings alternating red and blue. And we talked about this a little bit last week when we were looking at the Bible. For those of you who are here, it has this, the Bible has the same kind of thing happening where you have this alternating colors. And it's to aid the eye in reading so you don't get lost. So if you go red and then blue and then red and then blue, and as I said then, it makes me think of alternating gray and white rows in an Excel spreadsheet. It's that kind of idea that sort of helps you move through. So there's that little bit. There's also sort of a highlighting on the first letters of these sections. So you can see, maybe you can see there's a little bit of yellow, sort of a yellow highlight that you also see, oddly enough, let's see if we can find one, on the catchwords. So this manuscript does have catchwords. So that is at the end of every quire, the first word or two of the next quire appears down at the bottom as an aid to the binder when you're putting the quires together. And that's highlighted as well. So I think it's just a little bit of decoration there. There's been some damage, particularly when I opened it up, you probably saw that on the very first page. There's been some water damage, so you can't really see that. And also on the edges, kind of throughout. But this, it was not really heavily used in terms of being written on. So you can see there's a little marginal note here. It looks to me like it's the same hand as the scribe, and then there's a few notes here, but it's not really heavily annotated, which is one way that you can say a book has been used because people wrote on it. But it survived, and that's neat. So why this manuscript was around, I'm not really sure. So I want you to, we'll take a few more pages through, and then we'll take a look at the other one, because the other one makes a really interesting contrast with this one, I think. Let's see, I will show you where one of the chapter breaks are, which is 86 or so, I believe, just so we can have a look at that, because we're seeing these decorated initials, and let's see if the start of the chapter is any different. So this is the start of book 5, I think. Here, and you can see that the initial is very similar. It's just a little bit bigger, a little bit more decorated. So that's the start of the chapter. So we can pull this out and take another look at it. But this little guy, MS Codex 1630. And now I'm going to push that aside and pull this up a little bit, because the next one's quite a bit larger, physically larger. This is MS Codex 1629. So what's this? And how is it related to the other one? So MS Codex 1629 is a commentary on the text that's in 1630. It is one of 4 known copies of this particular commentary. So unlike the text itself, which was very popular and common and copied, this particular commentary was not. This manuscript was also, however, copied in Italy, but earlier. So this manuscript is dated to 1342, at least part of it. And we know that because there's actually a colophon in here. Not every manuscript has a colophon, but it's nice when they do, because then you can say, oh, we know the name of the scribe and we know when they wrote it. So as I'm paging through this, let's see, there's a note in the chat. Yes, lots of wormholes. This is very, oh, there we go. I apologize if it is out of focus for you. It's sort of coming in and out of focus there. Oh, and sorry, Heidi, there was a question that I missed. If the flesh and hair sides are more similar, that would indicate more careful preparation of the parchment. Less similar, less careful. I think that yes, generally that is the case. So there are manuscripts that I've seen, particularly like very fine books of hours are ones that come to mind, where the parchment is so thin and so fine, it's really impossible to tell the difference between hair and flesh side. And it may be because the material, so what am I thinking of? The vellum, uterine vellum is a term that comes up, where the claim is that the parchment is so fine it must be made by unborn calves, like aborted calves. And there's some question as to whether or not that's the case, or if it's just really finely prepared. I tend to think it's actually just really well prepared. There, I apologize if this is out of focus. I'm going to maybe, there we go. Come on, phone. This is my phone that's acting up. I'll just keep talking. So I hope you kind of saw as I was paging through earlier that this one is not fine. This is not a fine manuscript. This is a very messy manuscript. And if you take a look, the parchment actually is one thing that really indicates that it's not fine at all. So the pages are all different sizes. There's a very distinct difference between the hair and the flesh side. The hair side being very brown, and the hair side being kind of more yellow almost. And so not carefully cut. A lot of things like this, which is sort of an armpit of the animal. So in a very fine manuscript, you're not going to see this because they will cut off any bits that aren't really nice. It is believed that this manuscript was probably written by a student. And there are a lot of reasons to think that. One is the quality of the parchment, and another is because of the number of marginal notes and the number of hands. So the notes are made by many, many different hands. I'm gonna, you know what, I'm going to paste the links again in case there's anybody who came in late, because if you go to the digitized copy, you'll be able to see it much more clearly what's going on. So the parchment's a mess. There are a lot of notes in the margins, between, and interlinear in the comments. So this was a book that was used pretty actively, again, probably by students reading through. It's a commentary of the main text that's in the other manuscript. And if we zoom in, come on. There we go. So hopefully you can see that. The underlined bits of text are sections of the main text. So these are snippets of the main text, and then the commentary follows. And this is how this commentary was written. It's quite different from, we've looked at some glossed manuscripts before. These are also manuscripts that have sort of commentary and annotation around them, where you have the main text written usually in sort of smaller writing in the middle, and then the commentary written around it. And that took planning, right? And was sort of hard to do. Something like this is a little bit easier. It would be, you could sort of copy it out as you go, and just in 2 columns, and you don't have to worry about the rest of the format. So Carol is asking about the script. You're right, it's a more of a Gothic. This is more of a Gothic script, but let me see if I can see more specifically. Oh, that's a different one. Let me see. Script, level below. I'm looking at the wrong thing. The script it's a Gothic script. So this would be this is the earlier kind of script, when I was talking about the humanist script. This is a script that the humanist script was trying to get away from, because this is ugly and hard to read, and we want to make a script that looks more like the script that the original text would have been written in originally. So that's what the humanists were going for. So this is more of a Gothic script, pretty common one. Oh, we're in focus. Let's see if that stays in, probably won't. All right, let's see. So here we are back here. I also wanted to point out more about the condition of the parchment, just because this is a thing I'm interested in. There are a lot of, and this is just another example of sort of how the condition, how it wasn't really important for this to look good. So here's one of many examples where the parchment was actually damaged while it was being made. So if you look, you can see that there are little holes here they're actually sewing holes. So there would have been thread. And what would have happened is this is being stretched, right? The skin is being stretched on a rack. And as it's being stretched, maybe there was a bug bite, like maybe the animal had a bug bite, so there was already a hole there. Or maybe the person who was doing the preparation nicked it and it created a hole. And so instead of throwing it out, they're like, well, let's sew it up. And as it dries, and becomes stiff, it will sort of heal. I think I called it a scar. It's like a parchment scar. And so there are a lot of examples of this here. In some manuscripts, the thread is still there, and that's actually pretty neat when you see that. Here's another hole that they didn't even bother sewing up. They just left the hole there. But I think the person who copied this out didn't really care, because this was just a book that he was going to be using for his study. Here's another example of some parchment healing, I guess, down here at the bottom, a couple of examples. And over here is the colophon that I was telling you about. So there is the colophon, and I have it written out so we can actually see if we can read that. I know that I read that. Let's see. Colophon. Oh, wait. Here we go. Scriptus. Here we go. Scriptus per me. Where'd you go? Per me. Montellarium Peruti Magistri Montes Monteule. So this was written by me, and then the name of the scribe, Montellarium Peruti Magistri Montes del Maruti. Now, this is not actually a known scribe. The scribe is not otherwise known, but it may be a Tuscan surname. So this person may have been from Tuscany, probably a student copying his own copy. There's at least one other hand, though. And so this appears at the end of folio 34. And then there's more text that comes after that, and in someone else's hand. So this is kind of interesting. Who continued the text? So again, this is not a common text, but it's one that is otherwise, it's been copied in at least 3 other manuscripts. So someone else, was it his friend, another student? It's an interesting question that we just don't actually have an answer to. So that's sort of cool. Let's see. I was going to say something else about him. It was, I wanted to talk a little bit about the provenance for both of these. So provenance is the owning history. So looking at the manuscripts themselves and sort of talking about who wrote them and why, but also why did these books survive, and who owned them over time, and how did they get to us? That's another interesting one. And the fact that these two books sit next to each other on our shelf, and one of them is a copy of this rhetorical text that was attributed to Cicero, and the other one is a commentary on it. That is not an accident. And I looked into it because I thought this was kind of weird. Like when I discovered that these two books were together, I thought, well, that's weird. And I found out that they were actually sold to us at the same time by the same bookseller. So they were sold to us in December of 2012 by Les Luminaires, which is a pretty well-known bookseller in Chicago, sort of centered in Chicago, also with offices in New York and Paris. And they weren't given to us, right? We bought them. But the way that the whole sort of bookselling thing works is that different libraries are known to have strengths in collecting. And Penn is known to have strengths in collecting in sort of secular topics. So we have a lot of astronomy and astrology and medicine and history of science and these kinds of things. And also philosophy and rhetoric. And not so much, we don't really do books of hours. We have a couple books of hours, we have a couple Bibles, but we wouldn't say it's our strength. And so I think it's likely, I don't have all of the correspondence, but it's likely that Les Luminaires had both of these books, and somehow they got the two of them because they didn't buy them at the same time, and came to us and said, these would fit in your collection and you should have a look. It's very likely that that's what happened. And so we said, sure. And indeed, they do fit our collection really well. And so we bought them, and now they sit together on the shelf and give us the opportunity to do something like this, where we say, here is this book that's the copy, and here's the one that's got the commentary, and we can talk about the context in which that happened. And it happens because we have collection strengths and because the booksellers know it. So I just wanted to say that because I thought that was kind of interesting. It happened that way. I had forgotten, but I am now reminded, one of the another neat thing about this, and it's another about this, I mean this manuscript, particularly the parchment, and it's another example of the sort of economy, the fact that the person who put it together was trying to be economical, is that many of the leaves are palimpsests. That is, the parchment has been reused. So there were some other texts written on it. They were scraped off, they were washed off. The pages were recut, and we've written over top of them. But here, there are several examples that you can see, and I think they're listed in the record. But you can see really clearly here that there was writing. These are not marginal notes. This is writing that goes underneath. We call it underwriting, which is, I know that's a word that's used differently, but the underwriting is here. So you can see that really clearly on this page, which is pretty neat. And there's a couple of questions. Let's see. Carol, the script. Chris is asking the digital copies if there are any drolleries, pictures or images in book 3 on memoria in either manuscript. So it's hard to tell from this manuscript because apparently this one, it doesn't actually divide the text into books. I haven't seen any drawings in this one. We'll take a look. I'll close this one up, and we'll take a quick look at book 3 of the other one, just to see. And then Heidi has a question about their provenance before they came to Les Luminaires here. Here we go. So I'm just going to start flipping through here. So they were both written in northern Italy. This one in the 15th century and the other one in the, around 1342. The other one, the earlier one, was in the collection of a convent. I remember that, Dominican convent of Saints Giovanni e Paolo in Venice. So it was in Venice in this convent for a long time. And it eventually belonged to Baron Charles Alexander de Cosson, who lived in the 19th into the 20th century. He purchased it in 1876. His book plate is here in the front cover. Where are you? I'm not seeing his book plate. Am I in the other book now? I'm so sorry. I'm talking about the other book, right? His book plate, the other one has the book plates. And then he passed it on to his son. It was sold at Sotheby's in 1950 to William Foyle, who was a London bookseller. And then his was sold at Christie's to Les Illuminaires in 2000, and then we bought it in 2012. So Les Illuminaires had it for 12 years before we bought it. So that was that one. And this one, let's see, what do we have? Oops. What do we have on this one? Not much, actually. There is not very much in this one. There aren't, usually we know about the Provenance either because we have sales records or because we have book plates. And this one doesn't have any book plates on the front. So it's going to be difficult to figure that out. Sorry, I'm gonna find this out for you, Chris. I want to find the book 3. And this will be the last thing we'll do. So 48 verso. I don't remember seeing any, but I didn't look at every single page. So here's book 3, the end of book 3 and the beginning of book, sorry, the end of book 2 and the beginning of book 3. So we will page through here a little bit just to see if there's anything. It's very nice. I'm really fond of both of these for very different reasons, you know. They're both really nice examples of different types of manuscripts. Thanks, Diane. Diane just pasted in the Les Illuminaires descriptions. And there's also, I think their descriptions are a lot longer than our catalog descriptions, but you can also look at our catalog descriptions there. So I'm not seeing anything more fancy than the letters, than the colored letters themselves. And I think that's, nope, that's another section. I know, it's 12:32. I'll keep turning it, but I'll go ahead and say goodbye. So thank you all for coming today. It's always a pleasure. And we'll be back again next Wednesday to look at some more books. So I think that's, oh wait, that's still not it. Here we go. Thank you. We'll see you later. Eventually we'll get through this. I don't know, there's a certain pleasure to just paging through a book. It's just really nice. Okay. Chris, if you're still there, I'm sorry. It looks like there's not. There we go. Okay, I am gonna stop the meeting now. So thank you. Yeah, Chris, I'm sorry. Thank you all, and I'll see you later.